Part 12 and the final video in this series on the Prince Alfred's Pass covers the final 15 kilometers from the 53rd to the 68th kilometer. If you intend driving this pass, it's important to watch all the videos sequentially to gain a complete perspective. The remainder of the pass is a mix of indigenous forests and commercial plantations of pine and blue gum. The closer one gets to Neisner, the more the plantations dominate the scenery. The early hunter-gatherers, who seem to have entered the forests about 2,000 years ago, probably only had a light influence on the forest ecosystem. It's been suggested that they lived mostly in caves on the coast during winter and then moved inland in summer, where they collected roots and bulbs. Their lives were irreversibly disrupted, and their clans began to disintegrate when European settlers began logging in the forests. Many of them went on to work as farm laborers, but their clan names live on in places like Namakwa and Otiniqua. The forests of the garden route were vital for the settler economy. When the Dutch East India Company established its first settlement in 1652 in present-day Cape Town, they'd found a small supply of timber on the slopes of Table Mountain, but it was quickly used up, and they had to turn to Otiniqua land, the George Neisner Tsitsikama area, as a more plentiful resource. They required timber for everything, for tools, as building materials, fencing, and for the manufacture of ships, furniture, wagons and carts, and they began exploiting the indigenous forests of the garden route in about 1763. By 1776, a woodcutter's post was established near the present-day city of George. The timber was then transported overland and by cart to Cape Town. In 1778, Governor Joachim van Plettenberg visited the area and saw that the forests were being recklessly destroyed. He appointed Johann Meeding as resident at Plettenberg Bay. Although Meeding never instituted any conservation measures, he did bring a semblance of control by entering into contracts with the woodcutters. In 1804, George Rex bought and settled on the farm Melcote Kraal on the banks of the Neisner estuary. He saw the potential in the forests of the area and immediately began lobbying the colonial government to establish a harbour at Neisner for the export of timber, which it did in 1817. 1836 saw the beginning of the Great Trek, which created a surge in demand for timber for the construction of wagons. By 1846, the government closed the worked-out forests, divided them into lots, and sold them by public auction. The remaining forests were reserved as crown forests under the control of local magistrates, who were responsible for issuing felling licenses. 1 year later, all crown forests were closed for harvesting. They were reopened in 1856 as a result of a timber shortage. The Great Fire of 1869 burnt all the way from Humansdorp to Riversdale, and large areas of forest and almost all the grasslands of the region were destroyed. From this point, the pass is tarred all the way through to Neisner. If you lowered your tire pressures at the start of the pass, remember not to exceed 80 kilometers per hour at this stage. Underinflated tires on tar can overheat and cause a blowout. At the 64-kilometer point, a large quarry appears on the right-hand side of the road, and it's been brick-paved here to carry the weight of the heavy vehicles that access it. Once past the quarry, the road begins the final climb, which does get as steep as 1 in 10, and there's some fairly sharp corners on this section as well. The fact that the road is tarred here makes the going much easier, and a reasonable speed can be maintained. The road climbs up through a steep double S-bend, and as the small summit is reached, the first houses appear on the right-hand side. This is the initial entry into the sprawling township of Khayelitsha. Drivers need to exercise extreme caution here, as the rules of the road are to all intents and purposes ignored, especially so by the many minibus taxis. Expect badly parked cars, livestock, dogs, children and jaywalkers as you weave your way cautiously towards the end of the pass, which occurs at the 68.5 kilometer mark, where the R339 forms a T-junction with the N2. Turn left if you want to head for Plettenberg Bay and Port Elizabeth, and turn right to access Neisner. Be extra careful on the descent past Hornley, as there are regular laser speed monitoring points and the speed limits range between 80 and 60 kilometers per hour. And so the end of the magnificent and historical Prince Alfred's Pass is reached. Thomas Bain, South Africa salutes you.